Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable Behavior Explained. Several great books that one could read if they're struggling. Codependency No More is a good one. We'll drop those in the comments below. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, and it's asterisk, asterisk, CK. So that's a more recent one. That's a really pretty good read about how to deal with codependency traits. But ultimately, there's some strategies that can complement help with a professional, like getting help in a support group or dealing with things with education or workshops or classes. So now I'm going to talk about some strategies to address codependency. So we talked about what the problems are and characteristics and behaviors of someone who struggles with codependency, but now we're going to talk about some strategies to address it. So hopefully this helps you. The first thing is having self-awareness. Do you even recognize these patterns in yourself? Acknowledging that you might have some of these traits and tendencies. Reflect on your patterns of behavior, both independently and in relationships. Educate yourself. You're doing that right now. You're learning about codependency. You're learning about underlying causes. You're understanding how codependent behavior can negatively impact your life and relationships. Learning how to set boundaries. Establishing and enforcing healthy boundaries is paramount to recovering from codependency. So learning to say no and learning to say yes only when you want to without feeling guilty or anxious. Self-care is critical. Oftentimes codependency, we are so focused on everyone else that we forget to take care of ourselves. So prioritizing self-care is necessary. Things like exercise, relaxation, mindfulness, reading, but making time for activities or hobbies that bring you joy and fulfillment. Seeking therapy. I'm a huge fan of practicing what I preach. And so going to therapy, whether it's in a group setting or support groups or individual therapy. Building a support network of friends and family that want to support your healthy nose, and you learning how to kind of put your oxygen mask on first is essential to your recovery. And like I said, attending support groups or even social media groups where people have some of these issues in common and you can get some support from them. Learning to develop independence is pretty important with this topic. Developing your own interests, goals, identifying things outside of relationships that bring you joy, cultivating your own sense of self-esteem that's not dependent on somebody else needing you or other people being okay, and self-worth that's independent from that external validation is so critical. Improving your communication skills, taking a communications course, understanding that assertive communication is the best way to get your needs met. It's not a guarantee, it's not 100%, but ultimately that's our best shot at getting our needs met. And then first knowing what it is that we need in order to be able to express that. Challenging the negative thoughts that you might have about yourself that contribute to codependency, like I'm not enough or I'm not a good mom if I don't fold all my kids' clothes. And ultimately, if I do that, I'm going to contribute to their inability to fold their clothes as an adult when they're dealing with all of their other responsibilities. And so we want to not have enabling behavior. So we want to challenge those negative beliefs and replace those thoughts with self-compassion. We need to practice detachment. So learn to detach from problems or decisions of others. That's about them. This is about me. I'm separate and apart from them. And I can recognize that I can't control or change the behavior of someone else. And there's a lot of freedom in accepting that. Gravitating toward and learning to have healthier relationships. So this can be a hard or tricky part when you're learning this, because you may recognize that some of the people that you're in relationships with now are not healthy. And if you want to gravitate towards people with healthier behaviors and less codependent behaviors, sometimes that creates disconnection or loss in unhealthy relationships or toxic relationships. And then we want to celebrate progress. When you have small wins, we want to celebrate that, because these deeply ingrained, rooted behaviors that we learned, sometimes generations old, are hard to change. And so you want to give yourself grace and celebrate progress when you've made progress, because baby steps and small wins, it's progress, not perfection. So I hope that you've learned something today about codependency, how this happens in our family systems, dysfunctional families, how most of us have somewhat dysfunctional families, even though we're all doing the best that we can with what we learned. And of course, those learnings are oftentimes unhealthy. So we pass those down to our generations. We also talked about characteristics and behaviors that are often accompanied with codependent traits, and then some strategies to help undo these patterns of behavior in our lives. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you move forward and lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.